back to my YouTube channel. My name is Roxanne. I'm also known as The Tiny Taster, and today's recipe is another fabulous Parsi dish. It is called Salli Chicken or Salli Murghi. I'm super excited. So now Salli is thin potato straws, and I've made Salli per Edu in the past. There's a video that I've done on the channel. I'll link it below. So you can use Salli for different things. We Parsis, we like to use it quite a bit. We also have Salli Boti, which is made with mutton, but today I wanted to do it with chicken because I just think it's a little more accessible for everyone. Chicken is easier to find and slightly cheaper even. It's not a very complicated recipe. The ingredients are fairly simple. The only two common things that you will see is the Salli from my previous video, and of course vinegar that I use, which is a Parsi style vinegar, the Kola's vinegar, which I've shown you in my prawn patia recipe video. I'll link that as well just in case you want a refresher. But those two are the only I would say different ingredients. Everything else is more or less the same that you have in your pantry. I do want to point out that on some menus in Parsi restaurants or people that even cater Parsi food from their home, you will find what is called a Jardaloo Salli Murghi or a Jardaloo Salli Chicken, or even just a Jardaloo Chicken. So they are dishes that use apricots. I have used apricots in this recipe with the Salli. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but I think it's more traditional. I'll talk more about the history of why we use the apricots and things like that in my detailed blog post. Of course, the link will be in the description below. It'll have the recipe, the ingredients, the amounts, quantities, everything. So make sure to check that out before you try this recipe. If you haven't already, make sure to follow me on Instagram. I share so much, especially on my stories. I'm always giving shout outs to different brands as well in case you want to order food home. If you're Bombay based, I tend to do a lot that is Mumbai based, but I do share a lot of information. So if you'd like to, make sure to follow me there as well. If you like this video, please do give it a big fat thumbs up and leave me a comment. I always want to hear from you, and as always, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And without further ado, let's get cooking. So I've marinated my chicken pieces in some salt, pepper, coriander, chopped chilies, and some ginger garlic paste. I'll just rub it all in together. I like to use my hands and mix it as best as you can. You can use boneless chicken, but I feel for this recipe, the real flavor, and traditionally we use chicken on the bone, but it's entirely up to you. You just let this chicken sit for at least 15-20 minutes before you actually start cooking. Now, as I've mentioned, the two important ingredients for this recipe particularly is the Salli potato straws and the apricots or the Jardaloo. This is the Salli. It's just thin potato sticks that you can find in any grocery store. The apricots that I've used are just normal apricots. They have a seed inside. You can use the dried ones as well if you find that easier. I just think these are fine. It softens when it cooks and the seed is easy to pull out, but you can de-seed it if you'd like to. To my pot of oil, I add in all my chopped onions. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky and I tend to be impatient, but you just need to cook these onions down till they brown nicely, and they do take a little bit of time. The real flavor of this comes out if you're patient at this stage, and actually if you're patient at every stage and you cook it for a while, you'll see the onions turning white, but really they need to turn slightly brown before you then add in your chicken. Once the onions have cooked and have started to brown slightly, you add in all the marinated chicken. Just toss it about gently so that it tries to mix and coat in with all the onions as well. To this, I'd like to then add in my chopped tomatoes. Some people like to add this in later. I feel that the tomatoes really take a long time to cook and break down, and the tomatoes and onions form the base of your gravy. So I like to add it in now at this stage. To this, I add in the cumin powder, red chili powder, turmeric powder, salt, and coriander powder, and just mix it all together. I like to add a little bit of water, maybe say half a cup or so, just to make sure that all the masala powders mix well together and don't just clump up or stick in one place. So as the chicken starts cooking, you'll notice that all the water, onions and tomato mixed with all the spices will start forming a slightly thick gravy. This is the gravy base for the whole dish. I would just keep tossing the chicken occasionally and trying to make sure that it all coats in together while it cooks. It cooks for at least 25 to 30 minutes. At least I like to cook it nice and slow. And at this stage, you can also just pop in those apricots because they will also take some time to cook. So if your chicken at this stage has been cooking for, say, about 10 minutes or 12 minutes, it's a good time to pop in the apricots and just mix those in as well. Now, traditionally, this dish is slightly sweet. Of course, the apricots also give it a slight sweetness, but a lot of recipes ask you to add in a pinch of sugar. So I've just added in maybe a teaspoon or so. You don't have to. I feel like you could even skip this step if you don't like things very sweet, but just a little bit goes a long way. Now, as the chicken keeps cooking and it starts bubbling, you could even cover it for a little while at some stage, take it off, toss it about occasionally. Like I mentioned, it is a bit of a patience game, but as you can see it start to cook and bubble, the gravy starts to thicken up nicely. And really, this is what you want. You don't want it very runny or watery, but just a nice thick gravy that you could maybe mop up with a chapati. About 10 minutes before it's completely cooked, I would add in the vinegar, the cola vinegar, the Parsi vinegar that we use, and just toss it around to give it a little bit of tang. You can see those little Jardaloo or apricot pieces starting to soften up. If you look at it over here, this is what it looks like when it's cooked. It turns nice and yellow and shrivels up. It becomes much softer. So at this stage, even if you get it in your food and you're eating it, the seed doesn't feel harsh. But if you'd like to de-seed it, like I mentioned, you could do that earlier. It's now the final stages of this recipe. You can see that gravy thickening up nicely. The chicken's almost cooked. At this stage, I like to add in a little bit of Salli in the dish as well. You don't have to. Actually, the Salli is more a garnish because if you put too much of it in now, it does tend to get soggy. But I just like to add a little bit to give the gravy some bulk as well. So just a little bit for now, and the rest is the garnish when the dish is cooked. So there you go, your beautiful Salli Murghi or Jardaloo Salli Murghi is all ready. I just garnished the chicken with some Salli in the pot as well. If you want to serve it in the dish that you've cooked in, this is what you would do. I also like to take it out into a serving dish. So I've done that. I've just scooped it up into a bowl and then added in my Salli on top as well. And that's pretty much it. Your dish is done. You could eat this with rice, but we traditionally like to just eat it with some chapati or maybe some thick bread so we can mop up all that wonderful curry. Well, not a curry, but a gravy, a nice, thick, luscious gravy. And that is it. This is my Salli Murghi or my Jardaloo Salli Murghi recipe. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you do, please do leave me a comment. I would love to hear from you. Please do give this video a big fat like and of course subscribe to the channel. I've got a lot more Parsi recipes on the channel as well. I'll try and link them in the description below. You can always go to the website thetinytaster.com and have a look at those as well. I hope you've enjoyed this and I will see you very, very soon.